Today on our Tech for Business podcast, Jason, our vCIO, and Sara, our customer relationship manager, explore how IT can boost design efficiency and customer interactions. They discuss the evolution of renderings and the need for improved collaboration between IT and design professionals.
And good morning, Sara.
Good morning, Jason.
Live from the cabin and me in my downstairs bunker with apparently swords and lanterns. So anyway, good morning.
Good morning.
I know we're, I'll maybe tee up something that you just mentioned, which I think is really important, which is we are working on a short format version of a podcast where in roughly 10 minutes to 15 minutes, we're trying to provide some content. And I think that's a really great challenge because I talk a lot. So something of value that you can consume in 10 to 15 minutes and I don't spend too much time on, self congratulations or other fun things that I get prone to sometimes. So what do you think, Sara?
I think that's great.
All right. So I'll get my virtual stopwatch. Click.
Right. Here we go.
All right. So one of the conversations that I wanted to have was about, so we talk about rendering the technology all the time, but it occurred to me that the purpose of rendering in the context of a dealer designer is it's part of really a storytelling process. It is part of communicating to a client your design intent so that they can confirm with a signature that what you're conveying to them is correct. And yep, that's what I want. And I want to move forward. Does that seem fair for you as a designer? That may seem like real basic stuff, but for me as an IT person, this actually was okay.
I think that's a good topic.
All right.
Let's do it.
All right, so from an IT person standpoint, I think that we tend to focus on, I need to get you something like ideally something quick. Not always the case. There are other concerns, but I think it's important for an IT person like me to understand what I've learned about living in your shoes, sort of, which is what is the designer actually doing with all this technology we're providing, right? So describe to me when you're doing a rendering, you're not just like, hey, you know what? I got 2 hours of time. I'm going to go do a rendering. Describe to me the process as you're meeting with a client and the rendering becomes important. Is there one point in the sales process, or is it just you do one rendering and you're done? How does that function?
The way it worked for me was meeting with a client, going back, formulating some ideas, and usually very quickly popping them up in 3D. It's as 3D became an easy solution.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to see things in 2D anymore. Everybody needed to see them in 3D, even if it was a quick sketch. So, in my early days, it was a quick Google SketchUp 3D, not a rendering. But as CET came around and that rendering function came in, again, people were needing to have that rendering, and now they want it with finishes and what does it look like with shadows and how does it look with people in it. And so very quickly people wanted that. So towards the end of it, my career as a commercial furniture dealership designer, people were wanting those often. So my hiccup was it didn't perform well.
Sure. And I know I love to sell the idea that we're solving the performance of the rendering problem, if you will. So it's less time consuming, which is why it was something that I was so passionate about personally. But in the narrative process, like you're meeting with a client, right? Or even if you're equipping a salesperson with that rendering, I think it's important to, I guess I would equate it to when I was a theater geek in high school. I was not an actor. I was a behind the scenes guy. And I think there's a parallel between that and the IT people of the world, which is often our job is to support the actors on stage, to give them, the smoke machine goes off at the right time. We're supporting a narrative process as much as we are a technical process. Even though we're using technology to deliver that experience, we're part of what the client sees from the beginning to the end.
Right.
And I think that's an important thing for IT. If I'm a designer and I want to communicate and create empathy with my technology partners, the reason I want to have this conversation is because I think I'm trying to always help designers advocate with people like me because it took Carrie Anderson, shout out to Carrie, of UX and Carrie, by the way, who has now helped technology companies do a better job delivering software that is usable by designers. Anyway, that whole sort of process and experience requires constant collaboration between the designer and the technologist who is maybe not actively, but at least the systems they're providing, supporting them doing that work. Or the same in the context of a salesperson, where the designer might be helping a salesperson in the same sort of way, but is themselves beholden to a level of technology behind the scenes. So
Right. So
interesting.
that's a good transition into why I found this an interesting career change, moving into
Yeah.
that side of things where as a designer, you're solving problems for people, right? I mean, it's an artistic form of expression, right? The design
Yeah.
side of things, but also you're solving a problem which is a passion of mine. So the exciting part about what we're doing is innovating, looking at problems before anybody says, "Oh, this is a problem," and coming up with solutions for these people that traditionally don't have a lot of support on the IT side. I think
Yeah.
you are a unicorn in
Ha!
that
Yeah.
arena.
Yeah.
And I can't speak for everybody, of course, but in my personal experience,
Yeah.
it was tough. It was tough to navigate that world, with
Yeah.
these programs that designers are using that are complex.
Well, first of all, thank you. That was quite a compliment, and I appreciate it.
Well,
But I think what you're saying though is, I think IT as a business discipline can often become an island within the business. It's sort of like IT has this function as a necessary evil and a cost center that we throw money at, but the understanding that IT's role is so important through all these different business processes, I think goes misunderstood by the very IT people that are delivering those services. And I think again, working with designers, two things changed my perspective on this. One of which was just working with designers and saying, first of all, you guys have way cooler like conferences and events than we as IT people. So shout out.
right.
Um, and it was seeing the sense of community, which I'm not saying that IT doesn't have the same sort of communities within it, but they tend to be sort of focused on minutia around, the hows and the whys, but not, or the hows and the whats, but not the why and the context for we're doing all this technical stuff, but what does it really matter in terms of the business? Because the business is paying us to be a service provider, right? And we
Sure.
should be a force multiplier to our clients, which means we really need to know what they're doing so we can be a good partner. And so
Right.
Carrie Anderson, the other thing that actually helped me was I started doing, like part of working with designers for me awakened a bit of a creative desire inside of me to create things like in a more artistic way. And so I started
Sure.
blacksmithing as a hobby. And what was really interesting for me was sitting in front of a group of people who were watching me work and judging the output of that work artistically. And some people say,
Sure.
I don't, the dimensions aren't right, the scale isn't, this or that, the other thing. And I think if you're an IT person who's never been on stage, who's, public speaking or having your work critiqued by other people,
Sure.
um, that exercise is a really good way to get inside the head of a designer, what they're dealing with, and why a slow rendering, a crashing laptop, a slow network,
Right.
it breaks the experience of meeting with a client and talking about them, and frankly, it hurts their credibility. And you know what? We all win or fail together if we're talking about an IT person or IT organization supporting an interior designer. We're all in it together. Like you're part of that win or loss as much as the design. Well, I wouldn't say as much, but in a significant way, like
Yeah.
the designer and the salesperson.
You
Everyone else
made
is
me have
contributed.
flashbacks to my days where two things. The first one is having a salesperson stand over your shoulder, watching. And you become numb to it after a certain amount of time, but it's like, well, can you move that there? Can you move that there? Can you move that? We're like, you need to go away. You need to go away. You need to go away. And then the other one um, was just as a designer, you get really efficient and fast. And when I think probably the most maddening thing about, IT design, between IT and design is when your computer can't keep up with you.
Yeah.
That is the most frustrating thing on planet Earth as a designer.
Well, you're scooping a topic I'm going to touch on at the CET experience this year when I'm meeting with Curtis from their support team to talk about IT strategies. But the idea of IT lifecycle management is effectively that we proactively buy things that are faster than you need them to be when you buy them. And before they become a burden to your workload, we actually retire them so that
Sure.
at no point in time within a reasonable sort of cost value proposition, ROI is everything else we have to look at, but should be a major driving force in an IT strategy that is sound to support designers, which is we want your equipment to always be a step faster than you are, so it isn't limiting your performance. There's the number of dealerships I encounter where they think they're saving money by buying a laptop and running it for 7 or 8 years. It's crashing, it's slower than the designer, but it's like, wait, I only paid $3,000 for this laptop, even though it's cost me $12,000 of design labor to save, $3,000 or $4,000 buying another laptop. And it's a separate part of my job is translating to dealer principles. You really need to look at the ROI of your technology investments as it impacts your design team, and that a good IT team and a good IT leader understands how to advocate on behalf of their clients to get those financial resources so they can do their job effectively.
Right.
Period.
I think that's great. That's a good, that was a good chat.
There you go. There's our 15-minute nugget. Hopefully this is of use to people. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I'm a technologist, Sara is not, but Sara's moved into this technology role, I think, for the same reason that I'm in this role, which is to support designers, support these commercial furniture dealerships and their manufacturers who we can help make their technology experience better. And I think one of the things that we can do is advocate for IT people to think differently about what they're doing and how it impacts those designers. So anyway, that's our nugget for this morning.
That's great.
Thanks, Sara.
Nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you too.
Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this topic, please let us know. Like, subscribe, or reach out to us at info@cit-net.com or head out to our website, cit-net.com/podcast. We'll be back next week with an all-new episode.